I will offer you money so you can buy a 6-pack just to try it.
Tell me when, Melvin.
It's so light and
Counting down in a second.
1:30 on my watch. All right.
29.
We go, Shane.
yeah, because I see it at home, but you have to go to the gym to lose money. Like that's what that actually
Aloha and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bo Mahoy. I have Skoshi Portuguese, so I don't use the microphone. I hope everybody can hear me clearly. Welcome to the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. I am joined in hosting today's event with Melanie Agravante, the center archivist and curator. As part of our center campus, we are now in this building, which is the Stanley Izumigawa Resource Center. Restrooms are located just outside the front door at the Kansha Child Daycare Center. And the building that you walk past to come into the gate is our Maui Adult Daycare Center. So think about this. How clever is the layout that you have allows daily interaction between the Oji-sans and Oba-sans of the Adult Daycare Center with the young Chisana Kodomo. That's brilliant, and welcome to the center. This afternoon, later on this afternoon, we will migrate down to the museum, to our lower campus, as the inaugural audience to view our latest exhibition. The protocols of talk, book signing, and exhibition opening are like this. One, we offer you an intimate setting to be able to engage and share a conversation with our guest author, who I'll introduce in a moment. Just a few quick other introductions. Some people come a long ways for an exhibition like this. We have Tamlin Tunita, who flew in all the way from Okinawa. And Claire's not going to let her husband Shane come to Hawaii by himself. So we have Claire Sato. I wear this cavalry hat because I'm a Vietnam veteran. I have a combat infantryman badge, much like many of the photographs that you are going to see. And I'm here especially to honor someone 2 generations above me. That would be Masao Motooka. So in this case, all of you stand and recognize World War II, Korea, Vietnam. I'm not that old. The protocols of talk, book signing, exhibition opening. There's rule number 1. Buy one of the volumes of the 2 volumes we have. So the hardest question for you, am I going to buy 2 volumes or is 1 enough? The book signing. My official name is Cummins Kame'e Iamoku Mahoy III. I asked author Shane to sign my book. It'll just be B-O-O. If your name's like Poindexter Kuka Ilimoku Secretarial, pick a short name for Shane to sign that. And rule number 3, share this media platform with all your friends and neighbors. It's a coffee book. Don't let it sit on that table. Share it, because it is a piece of history, a different way of getting education out of our heritage. Because most of us here are Japanese American, and my wife is Caucasian, but at the tail end has Asian on that part. So you can see where we're at. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but in this day and age of inflation, a picture is worth 1,300 words. Professional photographer Shane Sato does not
front door.
Whereas he could have been photo shooting models from familiar agencies like Ford, Wilhelmina, IMG, Shane's models are specifically Nisei veterans of World War II. Us amateur photographers, we use these PhD devices, push here dummy. Shane's photos capture the angst, the sadness, the stress, not age, wrinkles of combat veterans. You may leave the war, but the war doesn't leave you. I introduce you to Shane Sato, visiting us from the island of La, LA, to share his experiences with us. Thank you, Shane.
I think I'm going to have to use the mic to blow my
Your Portuguese is not
Yeah.
All right. Everyone hear me? Yeah. Thank you, Bo. That was the best introduction I've ever had. Thank you very much. So, my name is Shane Sato. Just a little bit about myself. My dad, Sam Sato, not of Simon Sam Sato, was born here in Maui. In fact, some of my relatives are sitting right here. My uncles were in the 100th, including Glenn, your father, Ralph. And then I actually went to the cemetery for Veterans Day and visited my Uncle H.E.'s grave area and got to pay my respects for them in the 100th. And that's also the reason why I wear this Hawaii Aloha shirt. I know out here everyone wears this, but when I'm in LA or when I'm doing my other travels and it's really cold, I'm still wearing this. And it's just to show everyone that, to give homage to the 100th. My Uncle H.E. was always very stern, saying, 100th came first, the 442nd would not be there without the 100th. And so this is to me to share that story. So I'm not forgetting you guys here from Maui. My mom, she was born in Visalia, California, which is in Central California, on a farm. And they were interned at Poston Internment Camp. If you don't know where that is, it's in Arizona. I just came back from the pilgrimage with my wife. And it's amazing to see how desolate and hot and windy those areas are. Much different than the weather out here, but it is something you can't imagine people actually having to live in that situation for such a long time. If you don't already know, I've done 2 books which are meant to be a set, and they are called The Go for Broke Spirit. I was very happy to be invited here in 2018 by the Maui Nisei Veterans Center, and happy to show my first book. And thank you again, Melanie and Deidre and Spirit, and as well as the board to invite me back to present this exhibition. I finished the books in 2019. And I was just about to start the book tour for it. And then, as you know, something called COVID happened. And so now, my living room is a warehouse full of books. And my wife can attest, our place looks like a storage room. So I hope that these next few years we'll be able to continue these tours like this and sell some of the books so it's not in our living room anymore. I've done this for about 20 years. And I also, Masao, thank you very much for postponing your dominoes a little bit so you can hang out with us a little bit. So we already said, Happy Veterans Day to you, but thank you very much for hanging out with us a little bit longer. I've been working on this for 20 years. Masao is in the second book. I really like his story of Charles Lindbergh, how he was friends with him, how he lived in Hana. We went up, Claire and I, what was it, 2018, I think? We went up to Hana and we saw the grave site, and Hana is such a beautiful area, Masao. And I was planning to tell you this like 2.5 years ago, but I'm glad that you came so I can tell you this now. But yeah, that's one of my favorite stories, that Charles Limerick story, and how you couldn't get the screws to get into the wood and everything like that. It was really hard wood or something, right? So that's a real fantastic story. If you haven't heard it from Masao, you can either ask him or it's in the book. I've been working on this, like I said, for 20 years. When I first started, I did not know that I was going to be taking these pictures for a book. I did not know the reason why I was taking these pictures. I just felt that it needed to be done. Luckily, through these travels and stories and working on this project, I was able to meet people like Masao. I was able to meet people and hear their stories and take their photos, and now it's been such a collection to have it in these 2 books. And I also been working on it. Tamlin here has been working with the veterans as well. And thank you, Tamlin, for she not only flew here, but she decided to extend her trip an extra day so she can hang out with us tonight here, or today. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. We've been friends for a long time, and we're going to be hopefully working on some projects together. We've been talking about it here, traveling the island and kind of talking story, and that is really what the book is all about. I don't know how many of you were here for the Veterans Day dinner the other day, but Tamlin had a great keynote speech. And Tamlin, why don't you come up here for a little while and talk about...
I think I must have Portuguese blood, because I'm going to go for it both. I don't need a microphone because...
Tamlin has a much louder voice than I do.
Because I'm an actor. But I just want to correct your story, though, Shane, because you asked me, you told me about your second book coming out and how you plan to tour the book in Maui specifically 1.5 years ago. And I said, sure, I'll come along. And then that's when NVMC came along and said, hey, do you want to keynote speak? And I go, sure, I'll come along. and when I told Shane about my travel plans, I need to be back in LA on Monday. And I said, oh, shoot, I forgot. I originally came here to help you. So
she always helps me.
This is the reason why I was here. I just happened, I'm getting old, and I forgot about it. And he just said, oh, do you think? No, you didn't even ask. And I just said, let me see if I can extend my stay. So my flight's out of here is at 6:30. So I get home at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning so I can attend my meeting. But the reason why I'm here is that Shane, I don't even remember how we met. But I know you've taken a bunch of pictures for me, my headshots, as they say. And we were always in community together because helping the Japanese American community in LA, the veterans community, the Japanese American National Museum. And this is a story that keeps on living because it keeps giving. Because it keeps giving the stories of why we are, the Japanese Americans specifically, are it's a treasure trove, a literal treasure trove of American stories. And so, as Shane and Claire and I have been talking about our tour around the island, is that I believe that we have to focus in on the fact these are American stories. That we love the fact that we are Japanese Americans, we're descendants, Maui sons and daughters of the Nisei veterans, but we have to keep on spreading that aloha, literally that aloha that comes from these beautiful islands, about the spirit of thankfulness, of gratitude, of connectivity, of intersectionality, and this is what we're here for. This is the message that we'd like to spread around. The fact that Shane got to take these pictures and take stories from the veterans means that these stories live. These stories live and are given to us, to the children, to your grandchildren, to your great-grandchildren, and not only of Japanese American descent, to all Americans who fought for our country. So that's basically why I'm here, to try to share and to open up to young kids so they could have something to be proud of. To say, who's the greatest military fighting unit in the United States? It is the 100th 442nd MIS 522nd. And this is the reason why that we're so passionate about telling these stories. Shane has the art to take the pictures and collect the stories, talk story, drink beer with ice once in a while. But I'm here to be the cheerleader. I'm a storyteller. And to be able to be partaking and supporting Shane is just something that's easily done. And whatever I could do of service for you folks, I already asked Melanie. I was downstairs with Kyle and Shar. I'm sure you all know that we need to talk, because in order to facilitate how these stories are going to be spread out to the world with Aloha means that we have to start connecting much more and much stronger and much deeper. So whenever you need me, I'm here. Whenever you need Shane,
We are here for
we're
you.
out here for you. Thank you.
Now you know why I brought her up here instead of you. So I'm going to show a short video,
Yes.
which kind of tells my journey over the past 20 years. It was shot in 2019, and let's see if we can get this to work. Thank you for the lights. It worked a second ago. Let's see. I've been working on this project for the past 20 years. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. For me, this project is to help other families to talk like my family never had a chance to. Good. And a nice smile again.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then Shane Sato's are for words never spoken.
Look at you.
Yep. Look at me. Good. Okay, Shane, you're looking right here. A little more. Good.
For years, he's been taking portraits of World War II veterans from the famous 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the 100th Battalion, and the Military Intelligence Service. Those Japanese-American troops who courageously fought for the same country that had imprisoned many of them and their loved ones. And while most of us have heard their stories, their families have not.
My family, we never spoke very much. We didn't talk. My mom's side, I knew they went to camp. My mom would always say, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I was young. It didn't bother me too much." My dad would just not really say much. And as a kid, I started to believe that. I thought, oh, okay, it wasn't that important. History's not important.
History was lost on Shane. You see, after the war, it was common for the next generation of Asian Americans to assimilate, to blend in at all costs.
Your friends as they board the bus to leave the center are going to new experiences and to a better way of living.
I didn't think of myself as Japanese. I just thought of myself as American. I thought that every kid ate Swanson TV dinners and chicken pot pie. I do remember when I was in about the 4th or 5th grade, I was doing a school report on Japan. The teacher said, Japanese, it's too many syllables, so just abbreviate it to Jap. I brought that paper home to my mom, and she looked at it, and she was really mad, and I couldn't figure it out. I asked her, Mom, why are you so mad? It's just Jap. It's just a very bad word. You should never say that, nor should it ever be taught. And I said, why? What's wrong with Jap? Why can't I say it? Jap, 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 Jap. And she just went ballistic and said, that's what they said. That's what they called us when they took us away to camp. And I remember my focus changed then, and I said, camp? What's camp? How come I didn't get to go to camp? And she said, you don't want to go to camp.
So when an opportunity to photograph these fading heroes arose, Shane took a chance. Over time, he noticed a change in himself. The more pictures he took, the more he understood his family's struggle for acceptance in America. History finally began to weigh on him.
For me, it really strikes a chord because their story and the history is part of my family. They have to prove that they are loyal Americans to a country who actually put them in prison just because they are Japanese. Could I do that? And I have to say, I don't know if I could do that.
What's special about this book is that the pictures are mixed with those unspoken words, those stories and emotions many of the veterans kept just to themselves until now.
The Medal of Honor ribbon.
You know, for Christ's sake, I haven't seen you in a long time. We're joining the
Last chance to put on their uniforms.
Can't believe that he's gained so much weight and nothing fits.
The fact that Jimmy came, I was super excited because I knew that would be the last time he ever puts on his colonel uniform. And he said he gained weight. He just got out of 10 cancer treatments, so he's eating well, which made me really happy that it didn't fit him.
This one fits. This one does fit, yeah. This is going to be good. Oh, this is his jacket.
Wow, that's great. Once they had the uniforms on, it did change their persona. It did change how they felt.
You forgot how heavy they were, didn't you?
It seemed like they were back in that time. They felt that pride, and they definitely had that strength. It showed a different side to them that they don't always show to everybody. These are Nisei, Japanese men. Luckily, I'm able to somehow draw some of these emotions out. Otherwise, they would all just stand there motionless.
Pull that in through there.
We went out to his room and I said, well, that's a Class B uniform, you can wear that. He says, yeah. I think you feel proud to bring on.
The race against time for them to see the book is definitely now.
Franklin Monsoon.
Not long after his book was published, Shane was able to give his book to veterans and their families. The impact was immediate and profound.
I feel very proud. A little sad too, I miss them a lot.
The picture shows him perfectly. That's Frank.
That's when I used to be.
Very meaningful, especially these older guys. I consider myself young now, 91. It's a good way to preserve history.
I hope that we learn from our mistakes of the past and internment and anything that's close to that never happens again. This happened just 70 years ago. History can repeat itself if we don't continue to remember these stories. Many Nisei fought and died for my future. They went both roads. And now it's my turn to carry the torch and help the younger generations remember them and keep their spirit alive. All right. So that video actually was shot in Seattle, and it won a Northwest Emmy. I didn't get anything for it, but the producers and the filmmaker did, and I really liked it. It really kind of encapsulates the past 20 years of my project. So I've been blessed and honored to meet so many veterans and travel the country, working in different areas, trying to finish this project. And I remember, coming out to Maui, trying to photograph some of the veterans. And I was lucky. Oh, by the way, I'm going to show you my uncle. I'm the tech guy here too, so I'm going to see what I can do. Let's see there. You can see me there. That's my Uncle Eichi. And my Auntie Kyono, which was my dad's sister. Auntie Kyono graciously offered up her house for me to take the photographs of several veterans when I did the project here in Kahului on Papa Street. And I remember my aunt saying, okay, well there's a kind of a plain wall here and I can do the shoot in there. What I didn't realize is that it was my cousin's old bedroom, and there was like hardly any, there's like no windows in there. And the ceilings were like this tall. And so it was way too short for me to do any work. So I went out to the carport. Almost all the houses out here are carports. And so I went out there, and that's where the laundry machine and everything is, and had to take down my aunt's laundry and put stuff away. And I remember the people started coming, and I said, well, okay, we're going to do the shoot right here in the center of the carport, and their families are probably going, what's this guy doing, you know? What kind of picture is he going to be taking? But thank you for trusting me, and I hope that you do like the pictures later. It does not look like that anymore. But the wonders of Photoshop, I was able to create the look that I wanted. I do remember another story, like we were in San Diego with San Diego veterans, and the same thing, the ladies were saying, oh, there's nice rose bushes back here, you can take the photos over there. And I said, no, the garage looks pretty good. And then they're like mortified because it was like stuffed with all the stud things, and they're like, no, you're not going to take it in there, are you? But the lighting's good, and that's really what I'm looking for. People always ask, why did this project take so long? And I'm sure you know Nisei men, and they're not ones to really volunteer and take their picture or stand out or really want to make a fuss. And so every time I would come to vacations, such to Seattle, when I went to Maui, when I went to Oahu, I would go to the different clubs and try and see if anyone would want to take a picture. Most of the time it would be no, but sometimes I would go to the wine club nights, and I would let them drink a little bit, and then, hopefully I'd get a couple volunteers. But usually I would go there and I'd sit in the place like this where they're all talking or drinking, and I'd say, oh, can I take your picture? I'm going to put this uniform on. They're like, no, but that guy over there, he'd want to do it. He's really important. And so I'd go over there and I'd ask him, oh, no, I don't want to. That guy over there, he would want to do it. And then I'd go over there, and then, basically the whole night I'd be doing this little merry-go-round, not getting anything done, and these guys have been just getting a kick and laugh out of me. Every once in a while you'd probably get a veteran that felt sorry for me or something, or just said, okay, let's get rid of this guy, I'll take a photo. And then they're usually the leaders, and I was able to get some photos, and it would slowly build, and I would get more and more photos as the years went on. Funny thing is that as the project went into the mid-2000s, more and more people started to volunteer. Maybe it's because they saw their grandkids, maybe they felt it was time to share their story, but the project really took a lot of shape much later in life than when I first started. So that's something that I found very interesting. And then you can see in the video where I'm handing out the books to the veterans. Masao, you got your book already, right? So yes, good. All right, just checking. So I'm handing out the books to the veterans at the 100th Club. I remember this specifically, and we're like handing them out, and one of the older veterans goes, "Hey, I'm a veteran. How come I'm not in the book?" And the lady who sets this up all the time for me, and she goes, he asked you 3 times. You kept saying no. And he goes, I didn't know it was going to be good. So anyway, I hope that you can come down and see the portraits downstairs. But what I really try and strive for, being a photographer, a celebrity photographer like Tamlin to try and take photos of. And by the way, Masao, I like taking your pictures just as much as Tamlin. But when I try and take the photos, I really try and bring out some of the personality in the veteran or the subject. Whether that be somber, whether it be strong, whether it be strength, different types of emotion. It's just what I see in them. And so I hope when you look at these photos downstairs, you'll be able to feel that emotion when I was trying to take those photos. And that is really what I was trying to do. I don't know why I ended up taking so many photos. I think I have over 200 photos of Nisei veterans. In the 2 volumes, there's 160 portraits. And I really felt it needed to be done. And so I kept on striving myself to keep on taking the photos. The 2 books are called Portraits of Courage and Portraits of Legacy. Courage really represents the veterans, the people, the Nisei that were interned, the Issei that were interned, all the struggles of the Japanese Americans during World War II, and their courage to sacrifice to provide a life for me, all of you here. It took a lot of courage to get that done. And Portraits of Legacy is not just their legacy to keep telling that story, but also for people like myself, people like Tamlin, to go, and we're going to do our best to keep sharing these stories and providing the knowledge through the next generations. And for me, like I said, I was very naive when I was young. I did not know any of the stories. I did not know what camp was. I didn't know anything. And nor did I really care. I was a kid who I just wanted to play and watch TV. But it's really important that I learn this history, and for me to keep sharing this knowledge to the next generations is very important. I hope that I'll be able to continue to do that. Too many times when I met different veterans, I heard them say, oh, my son or my daughter, my family, they don't care. They don't want to hear my story. And then I would talk to the sons and daughters, oh, he doesn't want to talk, he doesn't want to say anything, he never shares his story. And it's this vicious cycle that we have to try and break. And that's kind of what the book is about. It's supposed to sit on your coffee table, maybe, flip through a few pages and say, oh, who are these guys? And talk about, oh, well, my family did this, Grandpa did this. This is who the MIS, this is who the 100th were. They fought, in World War II, and kind of share these stories. And it doesn't have to be a veteran story. It could be just a story in general. Because I remember my dad never really told me much about anything. And sharing stories about camp, my mom wouldn't hardly say anything at all. I've probably learned more about Poston working on the board and going to the pilgrimage now than she ever told me. I thought Poston was something where she goes to Laughlin and gambles, so I really had no idea what it was. But I hope that you enjoy these the portraits. I hope you can take home a book and share these stories. We will do our best to continue to share these stories and make sure that they are not forgotten. I have heard, throughout many stories from the veterans, and something that is always said is that they want their stories not to be forgotten. And that is something that I hope to continue to do. And I hope that you guys will always share your stories with your friends and family as well, because I believe it's up to us to continue the legacy of the veterans, as well as all the Japanese Americans in World War II. So with that, Melanie, do you guys do Q&A, or do you?
Q&A, absolutely.
And by the way, Tamlin should sure answer some questions. You can answer any Cobra Kai questions if you like to, or Karate Kid, But does anyone have any questions for us?
I have a story.
Sure.
I'm not from Maui, I'm from the East Coast, but my neighbor, my father, and uncles were all on World War II. And my neighbor, I wish I had written down everything. He was, I know he was in the Philippines, because he had dengue fever. But he fought in the South Pacific, and he said the 442nd were like monkeys. They just kept on going and couldn't find them. So, and I wish I had learned more from him.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's so many. I did try and talk to my mom when I was young, but it's definitely something with my dad. I wish I had asked him some more questions. And you know, sorry, I have another story. I have lots of stories, so I bring one more up. Do I have the second book up here?
I think they're on I have a copy in my office.
Well, I think, Karen, don't you have a copy of the second book?
It's on one of the chairs. Okay. Oh, yeah.
We found one. So, I'll tell you the story. Again, people always ask, why does it take so long? And actually, it's just the front cover there.
Oh.
That's it for now. Okay, so hold it there the whole time. So there's a story about this.
I'll put it back.
Sorry, actually, I want you to hold it up. just wait. So we were in Colorado doing the second book. The second book actually features veterans from the East Coast, whereas the first book doesn't have any East Coast or veterans that were past the imaginary line if you didn't have to go to camp. Okay, so there are some veterans that are in this book that no one has really any stories about, because no one ever talks about the veterans that didn't have to go to camp, that were not from Hawaii, and they were living on the East Coast. So we're in Utah and photographing at this church, and it just started to get, actually it was Colorado, and it was about this time of year, getting cold, and of course we were about to shoot the heater brakes down. One of the veterans, we're doing the shoot, and one of the veterans, I was photographing one of the veterans, and this lady comes running after me, and she says, Shane, this the veteran, he doesn't want to take his picture, he's trying to get away. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? So I run to the other room where they're already getting their clothes on, and he's like 90 something, so I was able to catch him. So he said, I don't want to take my picture. They tricked me. I don't want to do this. Why am I here? It's cold. And doing publicity photography in Hollywood for a long time, a lot of the celebrities, they don't like to give you a lot of time either. So I had to think real quick, and I said, well, sir, what did you do when you were young? And I said, wow, I was a boxer. I said, were you good? Of course I was good. Yeah. I bet you want to hit me right now. And he goes, yeah. So I said, okay, here, why don't you give me your best shot? So I gave you this photo. So basically, after he gave me the little shot there, and he lightened up, loosened up, and he agreed to take the photo. And ironically, it became the cover of the second book. So those are one of the stories that, behind the scenes, that it's the persistence, I always say, trying to keep up the stories and try and keep up the work, because even though it was very difficult, if I didn't keep on trying, if I didn't proceed to try and get this man to come back, I would have never got a shot like this, which is actually one of my favorite pictures. And so that's also the same thing. Even though it's going to be hard to try and share these stories and keep it on, we're still going to keep up the spirit and continue to tell these stories as much as we can and share them. Sorry to go off track there, but who else has a question? Right.
Shane, now that you've produced these 2 volumes, what do you think your next big project will be? What would you like to photograph?
Well, my wife would like me to sell more of the books to get out of all of it. But I think right now is, Tamla and I have been talking about this, is really figuring out the best way to continue the exhibition, which you'll see downstairs. And by the way, this exhibition is unique because this is all Maui veterans. This is the first time I've ever done anything where it's such a continuation like that. So it's going to be very special for me to see all of you there as well, because it's something that I've never done. But we're going to try and continue the exhibition to different areas. We're going to try and get grants, hopefully to do more exhibitions on the islands as well as in other parts of the country. A lot of them, hopefully, that places where they don't know anything about this. Tamlin's going to hopefully work together with me as well as with our friend David Ono, and try and proceed to tell the stories in kind of a different artistic way. Hopefully bringing some of the younger generation to come out and see these exhibitions and learn these stories. Because when Tamlin she can hold the room much better than I can. And it's definitely amazing to have her, watch her speak, or David, and see them really try and tell that story. You have anything to add to that?
I think I just want to connect it to the efforts of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center as well, because to come here for the first time for me, because I've been to the Club 100 in Milwaukee, to know that this organization, through the efforts of Melanie, as well as Leonard and Deidre, knowing that you have such a rich resource. Kyle and Shar showed me the treasure trove of digitized interviews and all the transcriptions of the audio interviews. And the next step for you folks is to just throw it up online, as they say. So I say this to you publicly. This is the conversation I would like to have with NVMC, because knowing that you have a smaller number of veterans, meaning that you can move faster. You can move faster forward in putting these stories up online. So kids like him can punch in a name like Masao Motoga and go and hear his story. And see not just Shane's book, which is a wonderful art piece by itself, or see David Ono's wonderful documentary, but to see all the information that NVMC has on Masao Motoga, and to see the talk story that he's put on. So hopefully it will inspire other organizations to do the same, because we know there's treasure troves of other interviews that have not been digitized yet. So this is what I hope to propose, to continue this connectivity between NVMC, between Club 100, between Go for Broke National Education Center, between the Japanese American Veterans Association, between the Smithsonian Museum and the AA, the upcoming Asian American Museum. There's so many organizations that we all should be in family with, in connectivity with. And I know it feels like a big task, but it's a real easy task, because again, these are stories that everybody should know. These are the greatest stories. The 100th and the 442nd and MIS are these military units that most Americans know, alongside the Tuskegee Airmen. I bet no other American, if they're interested in military history, can say, oh, what was that Vietnam troop who fought in Da Nang? Or the Korean Army troop, the Korean Navy veterans who fought in Seoul or Panjang. That's the kind of history, that's the kind of legacy we have with the 100th and the 442nd. So these stories, these art pieces, are what's conducive to making these connections between the organizations such as NVMC. So thank you. And you're all a part of it, because you're all the seeds of it. You're all the soil. You are the growth that all these stories come from. So hopefully, to pass it along to the kids like him here in this room, that's what we're trying to hopefully inspire, because these stories have to keep living. These are a part of our history. This is a part of American history. It's super, super, super prideful to say it's Japanese American history, but bottom line, it's American history.
Definitely American history. I always talk about the books as being not just Japanese American history, Japanese history, but Japanese.
But American.
American history.
Yeah, Japanese boy, but American history at heart.
I just wanted to share that for me it's important because my father never talked about the war, and it wasn't until after he left. And I remember my daughter, when I lived in Colorado, they had a whole timeline of stuff and she put the history and interviewed my father. I had no idea of any of this, and they weren't even interested in high school.
No.
They were interested in Anne Frank, and they know you could read a book on Manzanar or something, but they were unimportant.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've done 2 films on internment camp, and again, this is another forward thinking. I keep reading media reports. It's about the 80th anniversary of the Japanese internment camps, and I keep on saying BS. Those are American internment camps because our government interned them. We're of Japanese descent. The majority of us were American citizens. So we have to change the thinking. And it's like, because it could happen again. And organizations like the Japanese American Citizens League were the first ones to say after 9/11, do not harm our Muslim American brothers and sisters. That's the kind of forward thinking. And again, it's releasing our pride, but also opening up our stories with everyone.
My mom was one of the few times she would be very quiet, but when after 9/11, she actually went out and spoke to different people about that we should not
do the same thing
to other
Never
people,
forget.
right? And it was amazing to see my mom actually speak out about that, because she would never say anything except yell at me. But that's about it. Any other questions? Yes, Bo.
Yes, Bo.
I had heard that for the Americans of Japanese ancestry back in World War II, when the governments, state governments like California, were confiscating personal property, real estate from all the HAs in that location, that Utah didn't do that. Is that correct? And if so, why didn't they do that kind of confiscation?
Because nobody lived in Utah at that time. Because Floyd Mooring, who, I don't remember what terms he's been executive director of JCL, and he's from Salt Lake City. He said there was a border in the state of Utah, so it's like people east of it did not were not subjected to the same military orders that was set upon the persons on Washington, Oregon, and California coasts, and part of Arizona too. So Utah happens to be just east. So they were not subjected to that kind of treatment. So, the persons in Chicago, there's a whole bunch of JAs living out of Chicago. There were a lot of West Coasters who moved to Chicago after the war because they did not want to return to the West Coast.
Thank you.
So that imaginary line, I think it kind of goes through Utah.
Yeah.
What's the camp that's in Utah?
Topaz.
Topaz.
Yeah.
So when I interviewed some of the, or photographed some of the veterans there, some of the families could actually go to the camp, say hi to their friends, and then go back home because they were they were on the opposite side of that line. So it was very weird they were free if they lived like 30 miles this way, and then they could go to and visit their friends, or at least wave at them, I guess, at the camp. But yeah, there's a lot of stories like that just didn't make any sense. But that could have been it. Yes.
Yeah. And there were a whole bunch of other JA, much more smaller communities I know that were living in New Jersey, and New York as well, so who were not subjected to the same military orders. And again, people of German and Italian descent are finally figuring out there were Italian Americans and German descendants who were also interned alongside JAs. So again, these stories are starting to percolate. And again, this is a controversial term I will be using, I admit it, but for right now, I use it because this is what it means to me. When we talk about critical race theory, these are the stories of persons who realizing they come from other ethnic races, and there are stories that are important to them because perhaps their ancestors were not treated equally and indiscriminately as Americans were supposed to back in the day. So these are the kinds of stories that are helpful for us because it heals us and it unites us because we all suffer together, we all forgive each other, we all apologize, we redeem ourselves, and we can move forward. And so that's what I mean by saying we need to learn our history, and a part of it is critical race theory.
Some of these stories about the line and people on the other side are in the second book, this book right here. Thank you for holding it up the whole time. Is there any other questions?
Before we go downstairs, yeah?
Before we go downstairs.
And talk more story downstairs.
Yes, so I hope to join and Melanie, and we're going to go downstairs to take a look at the portrait gallery. This is the opening, right? This is the grand opening, so I hope you enjoy it. Please feel free to ask us any questions while you're down there.
Yeah, pictures, whatever, tell me I'm full of it, or tell Shane he's going to do a third book, or do a movie. And again, these are the kinds of stories that help facilitate the necessity to keep on telling them. The kids, I admire you because you have your phone in your hand, yes? So you're watching probably and I'm not criticizing you. You're probably watching things that entertain you, that educate you, that inform you. These stories could be that in your hands. It's like, I gotta tell the story of this guy, Masao Motooka, who drinks beer with ice. Because that was the old school guy. But again, what he did for our country, alongside his other brothers, all the boys of the 100th and the 442, you're the next generation, and you have that tool in your hand. So thank you.
By the way, do you remember her from Cobra Kai or Karate Kid?
Just wait for Avatar: The Last Airbender. So there's a movie coming out next year. Oh no, sorry. There will on Netflix. So watch out, 2023.
So just two things before we migrate down to the museum. There used to be 3 ways to get down there. You can walk the cement sidewalk, run around the building here. There's the asphalt that you can drive your car. There's parking stalls there. And the third way was down through the grass area over here. But it rained this morning. It's soggy. You don't want to slip and slide. It's abunai. So we're going to go to the first 2 ways of getting down to the museum. Secondly, there's only one restroom downstairs at the museum. So don't be confused when you look at the door and it says LGBT. You're getting ahead of me. Ladies, girls, benjo for public toilet, K for kane, W for wahine. Again, there's only one restroom down there. We'll see everybody downstairs in the museum.
We have the 2 restrooms up here if they want to go before they go downstairs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. The books, yes.